I'd like to welcome everyone again and thank you for taking time out of your busy lives to attend the MLA AGM. We appreciate for many of you it is time away from your businesses and we appreciate it. These are interesting times for our industry and for MLA. When I stood before you at this time last year, I'd only been chair for 2 months. I spoke about the record slaughter levels and the impact of the drought on the industry as a whole. 12 months later, these conditions haven't eased. A massive 8.8 million head of cattle was slaughtered in 2013-14, the highest level since 1978-79. Yet in the face of these challenges, the industry has had some achievements, particularly in the global market. I was fortunate enough to accompany our Prime Minister on his delegation to China, Japan and Korea in April. During the trip, Australia signed the Free Trade Agreement with Korea and concluded negotiations around the Japanese Economic Partnership Agreement. The Korean FTA secured elimination of the 40% tariff on Australian beef over a 15 forward-year time period, equivalent to the Korean-US FTA. If the elimination of the tariff had not been achieved, the Australian beef industry would have incurred a cumulative loss of around $1.4 billion over the forward 15-year period. The Korean FTA has also delivered elimination of the 22.5% tariff on sheep and goat meat over 10 years. The Japan Economic Partnership Agreement will benefit Australian beef exporters to the value of $5.5 billion over 20 years. It will also deliver an increase in the annual gross value of beef production by up to 7%. And we've been continuing to work to position the industry for the best possible outcome for the imminent China FTA. These agreements are an example of the value of the $7.4 million investment by MLA on behalf of levy payers in supporting industry and government to maintain access to and liberalise world red meat markets in the last financial year. MLA has also invested $28 million in international marketing, building the awareness of our safe, nutritious beef and lamb. During the course of this year, Australian exports broke previous records with robust demand across all markets. Beef export values totalled $6.5 billion. Simply, sheep export market values strengthened considerably to $2.4 billion, and goat meat exported almost $199 million worth. This was across 100 new and emerging markets. As you know, in December last year, the Senate Senate Committee commenced an inquiry into the systems governing grass-fed cattle levies. The inquiry heard from a range of industry stakeholders in a number of locations. The board and management attended or reviewed the transcripts from every one of these meetings. MLA has appeared twice before these committees. MLA recognises that we need to continually review how we listen and respond to industry. We currently do a lot of events, publications and consultative groups. We're in the process of reviewing the effectiveness and efficiency of all our communication and extension programs. The board recognises there are opportunities for MLA to improve our processes and systems, and I can assure you the board is driving these reviews very hard through our Managing Director. The board appointed Richard Norton as Managing Director to drive changes throughout the company. This has already begun and it will continue in the future. Richard comes to MLA with 20 years' experience working in agriculture, refocusing organisations and ensuring they perform. With Richard's appointment, the board has signalled to the industry that MLA is open to reviewing itself and open to change. Next, I'd like to address the current process for collecting levy information and allocating votes for the AGM. Currently, the Department of Agriculture has no way of identifying who pays livestock levies. The mechanisms exist in other levy-paying industries such as wool and dairy, but not in livestock. MLA will review the changes that were required to automated allocating votes in 2005. At the time, the industry determined that the extra $1.48 million of annual expenses to levy costs on top of the existing $1.1 million was excessive and decided not to change the process. MLA continues to revisit this and work with the Levy's Revenue Service to set out the options and costs for industry to consider. Within 6 months, we expect to provide industry with the information around costing and implementation of automatic voting entitlements so industry can make an informed decision. MLA has demonstrated its ability to undergo radical change, and the board remains committed to continuing these changes. We are building a more transparent, accountable and high-performing organisation. We will continue to support industry by providing the objective and timely insight and expertise necessary for it to overcome its challenges and meet its potential. MLA will remain committed to listening to levy payers in order to make sound strategic decisions that build a prosperous and sustainable future for the Australian beef, sheep and goat producers. Finally, I'd like to close by reiterating that the return to producers is affected by many things, including labour wage structures, all the off-farm costs, which are double or more than many countries, regulatory burdens, infrastructure costs, not to mention energy. These are issues that have a major impact on the farm gate price received by producers. They are issues that are beyond MLA's control. MLA's efforts will be in the areas where it can have influence. Levy income is forecast to decline over the coming years, so it's even more important that our investments are targeted in the areas that will drive real change for our industry. MLA is your company ultimately, and it must deliver to your expectations. Your board believes that the changes we're driving will allow us to do just that. Thank you again for your attendance today, and I look forward to catching up with all of you for a drink afterwards.